The Hope and Depression course was structured over a few weeks, so it wasn't a very long course. That was attractive in a busy life. And the things which really appealed to me, because I've got a science background, were that some of the weeks were about the science of depression and what's happening inside your brain when you're dealing with depression or anxiety. What does the brain structure look like? How does nutrition affect your life? And those things really impacted on me in a big way.
It's such a great help and can give you really practical advice. It's a really relaxed atmosphere. No one is judgmental. It's a safe environment, which is amazing. You don't get that really in the rest of life necessarily if you don't have somebody to talk to.
It's very stimulating and enriching to find how other people have lived through the same struggles. So I certainly benefited from that in terms of how to recognise when triggers and things like that begin to set me off.
Welcome back to our channel, and this is the first of our films covering all the things that we talk about on our course, just to kind of give you some tips and techniques that can help you cope during this pandemic crisis and manage your mental health. So first of all, I want to just explain that our YouTube channel is different to our course. So the course that we've been running for the last 6 years is going to be available in a virtual format, but it's not available yet. We're doing a pilot scheme at the moment. So this YouTube channel is just a way for us to give you some bite-sized pieces from our speakers and give you, some empowering tools that can just help you get through this time. So I just want to tell you a little bit about myself before I start. But before I do, I would like to just say that, I'm going to be talking about people's different experiences of depression, what it has felt like for them, what it looks like for them. And I don't want that to be a negative. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by that. I want you to hopefully see the hope in that and relatability in that. I stand here well today. I manage my mental health really well because of all the things that we've learned over the last 6 years. Last 6 years, we've helped over 1,000 people, and all these quotes that I'm going to be, all these kind of symptoms and experiences people have are the answers that people have given more than once, okay? So it's the most popular answer, just to kind of give you that relatability, that you're not alone in this, that, we can relate to one another and, you can get better. So I just want to share briefly with you about my story. So I suffer with depression and anxiety several times. I've had several episodes of depression and anxiety over the years, and I'm not going to be going into too much personal detail about that on this channel because I do share in a more raw way when I run the course. I just don't think this is the appropriate platform for that. But I will just say to you that, it was awful and it is awful, but you can get better. I am standing here as testament to that, and I have wobbly days and I have days when I'm challenged with life issues, and but the tools and techniques I've learned have helped me manage it much more effectively than I was. And I feel that life is to enjoy, not endure. And when I was really ill, I was enduring life, literally hanging on, by the skin of my teeth. And I run this charity. I started this charity because I don't want anyone to suffer the way that I suffered. Okay, so the question that we ask on the course is, what does depression look or feel like for you? So I'm just going to share with you some of the things people have said, and whilst I'm doing that, if you can just ponder on what it looks and feels like for you. So lots of people, kind of an obvious answer, they feel sad. And another thing that comes up is darkness. They just feel like they're clothed in darkness, or the world seems dark, or every day seems dark. Exhaustion and tiredness is also something that people feel like when they're depressed. Weighed down with an invisible weight. Hopeless. I called the charity Hope in Depression because when I was depressed, I felt hopeless, and there wasn't a huge amount of hope being offered to me. I went to my GP and I was very low, and I was offered a medication that might take 4 weeks to work, and a therapist that I had to join a waiting list for. I went home in the same position that I arrived in. Nothing had changed. I felt hopeless. One very unhelpful GP said to me that this is something I would just have to deal with and I would have to learn to cope with. And that's not true. My life has improved, and I'm so grateful for all the tools and techniques that I've been taught by our professional speakers that you're going to be hearing over the coming weeks. So helpless, again, something I felt when I was depressed. People talk about feeling lonely. And I think during this time of our pandemic crisis, a lot of people are going to feel that. But I want you to understand that you may be physically on your own, but you are not on your own. We are here for you, and you're not the only one feeling stressed and anxious, so take comfort in that, okay? This is a stressful time, but try and be kind to yourself and reach out, make a virtual community. Okay, I felt very desperate, and that's a word that often comes up on our course, a feeling of desperation. I'm going to turn this way to write this one. And, depression likes to lie to us and tell us we're something we're not, useless or rubbish or hopeless. So it brings our self-worth into question. Okay, so these are kind of, pretty negative words, but it's the truth. That's how bad depression feels. It really does feel that bad. So one of the things that people often talk about as well as physical symptoms, we had a speaker a few years ago who moved away. She was from Sweden. Her name was Karin, and she was a psychosomatic therapist. And so she would actually sit down with people and talk about how they were feeling because they had gone through a series of physical tests and no understanding as to why they were feeling the physical symptoms they were feeling. And it often stemmed from mental trauma. So, we talk about that if you don't listen to the brain, if the brain's telling you you're stressed, something's not in balance, the body will start to scream. And that's what psychosomatic symptoms are. So some of the physical symptoms that people feel, my board is quite wobbly, sorry about that. Headache is quite a common one. People often battle with constant headaches. Back pain, that's a great example of how mental stress can come out in the body. This is a classic, upset tummy. I really relate to that. And for me, it caused no appetite. And some people, they have an increase in their appetite. My handwriting's not the best. Okay, so, that's very real. Those symptoms can feel very real, and oftentimes they come from mental stress. And it's really important that you're aware of that, because there's hope in that, isn't there? There's hope if we can sort that out. So I just want to talk about uninvited thoughts really quickly. When I run the course, I often talk about the brains being a train station. And thoughts are like trains just travelling through your brain. And sometimes we can choose to jump on one of those trains and go on a journey that might never happen. For example, they often start with what if. In this pandemic crisis, what if we can't get groceries? What if we start to struggle to feed our families? Well, that's a journey that I don't need to be going on today. And when I recognise I go on that kind of worrying, anxious thought process, I need to jump off that train and come back into the moment. And right now, I have food. Right now, I have a house. I have my family, and we're well. So I'm going to deal with the facts of today, and I'm not going to go on a journey that doesn't help me today or my family. And there's a really fantastic study out there. It's about 4 A4 sheets of uninvited thoughts of normal people. I don't even think it says that, but it's something like that. And there's loads, under different categories of violence or, horror or, just different kinds of titles. And one of the ones that I find quite funny, because that's the kind of sense of humour I have, but every time this person goes down an escalator, if there's someone in front, they have the urge to kick them down the stairs. Well, they're not going to kick them down the stairs. It's an uninvited thought. So thoughts are just thoughts, okay? They only have the power we give them. And we can step back from them and recognise that they're uninvited. They're nothing to do with me. They're not a defining part of me. They're just a thought, okay? So we also talk about, what does depression look like for you when you come on the course? And we ask people to draw a picture if they can't come up with a word. We've had several really good pictures over the years. One of my friends, who is one of our course leaders now, she talked about having permanent dirty glasses. She would just constantly be cleaning her glasses. And that's because it just felt that kind of clouding that came over, that blurry vision. Everything was out of focus. Another one was, we had a supporter, our courses for supporters and sufferers. And one of our, he was a husband of a wife who really struggled. And he said it was like he was on a boat in an ocean. And sometimes that ocean was clear and flat. And he could hold his wife's hand and she was bobbing up and down in the water. And sometimes the waves were so big, he couldn't get to her. And that kind of shows that as a supporter, it can be really hard too. So I just want to draw what I understand or how I feel when I go through depression. So depression for me feels like a deep, dark, cold, lonely hole. And here I am in the bottom of that hole. And I'm alone. And it's awful. And I always kind of felt like that in my depression. And I heard this fantastic quote from the series, it was called West Wing. And he talks about, this man's in a hole. And people keep going past and someone comes past and says, here's a prayer, and throws a prayer down. And he's like still in the hole. And someone throws down a prescription, a medication, and says, take that. And he's still in the hole. And then someone else comes along and he's like, what's going on? Are you okay? And the guy says, oh, but I'm in this hole and I'm so alone, I can't get out. And this guy jumps in the hole. And the guy inside the hole says, why did you do that? We're both in this hole now. We're both stuck in this hole. How are we going to get out? And this guy says, do you know what? Don't worry. I've been here before. I know the way out. And that's what we try to do in Hope and Depression. We take the worst experience I've ever had in my life and we help others because we've been there. I relate. I understand. And we know the way out. Not only do we know the way out, but we try and create a fence around that hole, on both sides of the hole, all around the hole, should I say. And that hole is now harder to fall into because of these tips and techniques, these life management skills that can kind of help us. Sometimes we might fall down and we might be on the ground over here struggling, but we won't fall back in that hole because these safety behaviours, these skills have been learned. So I just want to talk about the outcome star. I know you can't see this, but I'm going to hold this up anyway. And we're going to just have that linked at the bottom in the description. If you can print that off and just fill it out, then you will be able to kind of see if there's a progress as you go along this experience with us. And it'll just be a really good way if you fill it out today. It shows you, how life can expand out when we have the skills. And as I said before, life is to enjoy, it's not to endure. So I will see you tomorrow with our next video where we'll be talking about what are the causes of depression. Thank you. Welcome back to our YouTube channel here at Hope and Depression. We are going to be talking about what causes depression today.